I arrived by taxi at that family dinner. My son laughed when he saw me get out without the Nissan he had given me. In the car, Dad Linda, my daughter-in-law, dropped the sentence that would change everything. I gave it to my mother. She needs it more than he does. I had sold a piece of land in Indiana so my son could grow the business. That money bought the Nissan. But nobody told me. Michael gave it to me as if it were his, as if he had made the sacrifice. My son said nothing. He just looked away. Barbara, my mother-in-law. She was sitting in the living room with the car keys in her hand. She smiled at me. She jingled the keys like a trophy. And in that moment, I knew this was not just about the car. It was something much bigger, something that was going to destroy me. If this story touches your heart, subscribe. Every day, I upload real stories that could be yours. Tell me where you are watching us from. My name is David Miller. I am 67 years old. I was born in Detroit, but I have spent 40 years in Chicago. I arrived with a suitcase, 27 years old, and a desire to work. I met my wife at a diner in a downtown market. We got married in 6 months. We had a son, Michael. We opened a hardware store selling everything: nails, cement, paint tools. 40 years building that business with my own hands. My wife died 5 years ago. After that, I felt tired, lonely. Michael told me Dad let me handle the business. You rest, I will take care of it. I handed over the management 2 years ago. I thought I was helping him. I thought it was still mine, that it was just help. But now I know it was the beginning of the end. That Saturday afternoon, I arrived by taxi at Michael's house. A nice house in a gated community in Oak Park, with a garden and an automatic gate. I helped pay half the down payment 3 years ago. I rang the doorbell. I waited under the sun. I heard music inside, laughter voices. The door opened, and there was my son with a beer in his hand, and that smile one puts on when receiving someone they were not expecting with much enthusiasm. Dad, good you made it. Come in. He let me in. The living room was full, people I did not know, friends of Linda, and on the sofa with legs crossed and a glass of red wine in her hand was Barbara. I closed the door, and Michael dropped the question casually. In the car. Dad, where did you leave it? Everyone turned to look at me. The conversation stopped. I stood still. It is in the shop, son. It was scheduled for the 50,000-mile checkup. Michael frowned. He put the beer on the table. In the shop, but I gave it to you 2 months ago. He said it loud as if he wanted everyone to hear, as if he wanted everyone to know that he, Michael, had given a car to his father. I looked around. Everyone was looking at us. Linda came out of the kitchen drying her hands with a cloth. She looked me straight in the eyes with that coldness she always gave me when I arrived. It is not in the shop, David. My heart stopped. What do you mean it is not in the shop? She shrugged. I gave it to my mother. The silence was total. Nobody chewed, nobody drank. Everyone looked at me, waiting for my reaction. How my voice came out broken lower than I wanted, and Linda shrugged as if she had said she'd changed the bathroom soap. I gave it to my mom, David. She needs it more than you do. Barbara lifted the keys to the Nissan and jingled them in the air slow with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Thanks, David. It was a godsend. I just needed transportation to get to work. Her voice was soft, almost maternal, but there was something icy in it, something that made me feel this had been planned. I looked at Michael. I waited. I waited for him to say something to defend me, to tell his wife that this was not done. But he just scratched the back of his neck, looked away toward the window, and mumbled, We will talk later, Dad. Right now, there are people here. He changed the subject immediately. Well, let us sit down. The meat is ready. Linda's sister-in-law coughed and got up to get more napkins. A friend of Michael pretended to check his cell phone. Nobody said anything. It was as if I had become invisible. I sat in a chair at the end of the table, far from the grill, far from the laughter. I took a deep breath. I tried to keep calm. I did not want to make a scene. I did not want to be the bitter old man ruining the gathering. Michael, that car you gave to me, it was a gift from you. My voice was trembling. Linda came back with a pitcher of water and interrupted me before I could continue. "Oh, David, you do not even drive well. At your age, it is dangerous to be on the street. Better that someone who really needs it uses it. Do you not think?" She said it with a sweet smile, as if she were taking care of me, as if she were doing me a favor by taking the car from me. I felt the blood rising to my face. My hands were shaking. "I am 67 years old, not 90. I drive perfectly." My voice came out stronger than I expected. Barbara laughed, a short, dry laugh full of mockery. "Besides, David, I work in the suburbs. I have to cross half the city every day. You only go to the market, to the pharmacy. You can keep using the taxi. Right?" I closed my eyes. I remembered when I was 20, I drove 18-wheeler trucks. I crossed the country with 25 tons of merchandise. I slept in the truck. I drove at night under the snow on unpaved roads without GPS, only with an old map and my instinct. I never had an accident, not one. I opened my eyes. Barbara was looking at me with that smile. Linda was serving salad as if nothing had happened. Michael ate in silence without looking up from his plate. The other guests spoke in low voices among themselves, but I knew they were watching me, waiting for me to explode, to shout, to make a fool of myself. I was not going to do it. I got up slowly, without making noise. "I am leaving." Michael looked up surprised. "Dad, where are you going? You have not even eaten." I shook my head. "I am not hungry." I walked toward the door. Barbara shouted from the table with that sing-song voice she used when she wanted to humiliate someone in public. "Have a good one, David. And thanks again for the car. It is beautiful." I heard laughter. I do not know if it was just her or if someone else laughed. I did not turn around. I opened the door and went out. The afternoon heat hit my face. I walked fast to the corner. My legs were trembling. I called a taxi. The driver arrived in 5 minutes. I got in without saying a word. He looked at me through the rearview mirror. "Are you okay, sir?" I did not answer. I just looked out the window. The streets passed by in a blur. I thought about the keys in Barbara's hands, about my son's smile. I arrived at my house, a small 2-story house on a quiet street in Chicago, the same house where my wife and I lived for 35 years, the same one where Michael learned to walk, where we celebrated his birthdays, where we healed his scraped knees. I opened the door. Everything was dark. I turned on the light. I sat on the sofa. I took out my wallet. There was the photo of my wife, folded old, with worn corners, her smile, her eyes. I spoke to her in a low voice as I did sometimes when I felt lonely. "I do not know what we did wrong, honey. I do not know where we went wrong with him." I stayed there, sitting until it got dark, without eating, without moving, just thinking about the land I sold in Indiana, a land my dad left me before dying. I sold it to give the money to Michael so the business could grow. "Dad," he told me. I believed him. I gave him everything, $80,000, and with that money, he bought the Nissan. He gave it to me as if it were his, as if he had made the sacrifice. And now that car was in the hands of Barbara, the woman who looked at me as if I were a nuisance. How had I reached this point? At what moment did I stop mattering? The next day I got up early. I had not slept well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Barbara's face smiling with the keys in her hand. I showered, put on a clean shirt, some jeans. I decided I would go to the hardware store, that I would talk to Michael, man to man, without Linda, without an audience. I would ask him why he did not defend me, why he allowed his wife to humiliate me like that. I took the bus at the corner. I got off 2 blocks before reaching the business. I walked slowly. From afar, I saw the sign, Miller Hardware, my last name. 40 years building that. I opened the door. The bell rang, but what I saw stopped me cold. Linda was behind the counter, dressed like an executive white blouse, black pants, hair tied back in a high ponytail. She looked like the owner. She saw me enter and did not even smile. "Good morning, David." Her tone was cold professional, as if I were just another customer. I looked around looking for Michael. He was not there. But Barbara was there, sitting at my desk. The desk where I had worked for 40 years. She was wearing reading glasses and reviewing papers as if she were an accountant. She looked up when I entered. She looked me up and down and smiled. "Oh, David, did you come to work?" She said it, dragging the words with mockery. I tried not to react. "I came to speak with Michael." Linda shook her head without stopping writing in a notebook. "Michael is in the warehouse receiving merchandise. We are busy. If you need something, you can tell me." Busy? As if I were a customer interrupting. As if I had not built this business from scratch. The door opened behind me and Mr. Henderson entered. A man with a white mustache, about 70 years old, who had been buying materials here for 30 years. We had known each other since he built his first house. He saw me and his face lit up. "David, how are you, my friend?" He walked toward me with open arms. I shook his hand firmly. I felt an enormous relief. Someone still remembered me. Someone still respected me. "Good, Mr. Henderson. I am still here, you know." He patted my shoulder. "I came for some PVC pipes." The usual. I was going to answer him to tell him where they were. But Linda got between us. Literally. She placed herself in front of Mr. Henderson, blocking my view. "Mr. Henderson, David does not work here anymore. He is retired. Anything you need, you can speak with me. I am the manager now." The word retired hit me like a slap. I never asked to retire. I never signed anything. Nobody asked me. Mr. Henderson frowned. He looked at me confused, looking for an explanation. "Retired. But David is not the owner." There was a tense silence. Linda opened her mouth to answer, but Barbara beat her to it. She spoke from the desk without even looking up from the papers, as if she were commenting on the weather. "He was. Mr. Henderson? He was. Now he is resting. He already completed his cycle, right? David." Her voice was loaded with poison. I looked at Mr. Henderson. He looked at me, waiting for me to say something to deny it. But I could not. I stood there like an idiot. The words did not come out. Linda took advantage of my silence. She offered a catalog to Mr. Henderson. "Tell me what you need. We have new promotions on piping." He hesitated. He looked at me one more time. But finally he accepted the catalog and walked away toward the shelves. I stood there in the middle of my own hardware store, feeling the floor move under my feet. I walked toward the back, toward the desk that had been mine for 40 years, where I signed contracts, where I paid my employees, where I made the decisions that made this business grow. The office door was closed. I turned the handle. It was locked. I knocked. Nobody answered. "It is locked, David." Linda had appeared at my side like a ghost. She crossed her arms. "Only Michael and I have the key now. For security." I looked her straight in the eyes. "That is my desk, Linda." She held my gaze without blinking. "It was your desk, David. Now things are different. Michael and I run the business. You have to understand that you can no longer be here all the time. You confuse the customers. You confuse the employees. Confuse. As if my presence were a problem. As if I were a crazy old man who did not know where he was standing. I felt my hands trembling with rage. At that moment, a young guy came out of the warehouse carrying a box of screws. He must have been about 25. Tattoos on his arms, a baseball cap. I did not know him. "Where do I put this, boss?" He asked Linda without even looking at me. She pointed to the shelf on the left. The guy obeyed. He passed by my side as if I were invisible. "Who is he?" I asked. Linda sighed as if she were sick of my questions. "He is Justin, our new employee. He started 2 weeks ago. He is very efficient. He knows how to use the computer. He manages the digital inventory. It is what we need now." Every word was a stab. New people. Computers. As if I were a useless dinosaur. The warehouse door slammed open and Michael came out. He was wearing work gloves, a sweaty t-shirt, and dust on his face. He saw me, and his expression changed. It was not joy, it was panic. He walked fast toward me. "Dad, what are you doing here?" He said it in a low, urgent voice as if I were doing something bad. "I came to talk to you, son, about yesterday, about The car about all this, I pointed around. He looked at the customers. Mr. Henderson watched us from the other end. Barbara was still at the desk, but now she looked at us with attention, enjoying every second of my humiliation. Michael took me by the arm. Dad, not here. Please, not now. He tried to pull me toward the door. I pulled loose with a jerk. Why not here? This is my hardware store, Michael. I built it with my hands. My voice rose in volume. The customers stopped moving. Linda stopped writing. Barbara took off her glasses. Everyone was looking at me. Michael grabbed me harder, this time with both hands. Dad, please, you're going to make a scene. People are watching. A scene. That word split me in two. I was not making a scene. I just wanted answers. I just wanted to know why my son had betrayed me like this. I walked toward the door without saying anything else. Michael followed me. Dad, wait. We will talk later. I did not look at him. I opened the door. The bell rang, and just when I put a foot outside, I heard Barbara's voice from the desk. High, clear, full of poisonous satisfaction. Have a good one, David. And thanks again for the car. It is serving me very well. She laughed. A sharp laugh that drilled into my ears. Some customers laughed too uncomfortable. I stopped. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to scream at her that I paid for that car, that it was my land, my money. But I did not do it because if I opened my mouth, I was going to cry. I left. The door closed behind me. 3 days passed since that moment at the hardware store. 3 days in which I did not leave the house. I did not eat well, only coffee and bread. I slept in fits. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Barbara's smile. I heard her laughter. Tuesday afternoon, someone knocked on the door. I thought it was Michael, that he had finally come to talk to me. I opened fast, but it was not him. It was a messenger with a yellow envelope. David Miller. I nodded. He gave me the envelope, asked me to sign a paper, and left. I closed the door. I sat in the dining room. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a legal notice. I read the first line, and the world fell on top of me. Eviction notice. The property located at 47 Maple Street, Chicago, will be sold. The occupant has 30 days to vacate. I read the document 3 times. It could not be real. This house was mine. Well, not legally, but it was mine. I had bought it 35 years ago with the money I earned working in construction before opening the hardware store. Here Michael was born. Here my wife died. Here was everything I had left. But the document was clear. The house was in Michael's name since 3 years ago. 3 years, I tried to remember. 3 years ago, Michael told me he had a big debt with the bank, that if he did not pay it, he was going to lose his house, his and Linda's. He asked me for help. Dad put the house in my name temporarily. It is for a loan. I will give it back to you in 6 months. I signed. I trusted him. But he never gave me back anything. And now it turns out he was going to sell my house. The house where I lived. I felt my hands shaking. I looked for my cell phone. I dialed Michael's number. It rang and went to voicemail. Leave your message after the tone. I hung up. I dialed again. Voicemail again. 3rd time, 4th, 5th, nothing. My son was ignoring me. He knew I was going to call. He knew I had received the document. And he was avoiding me as if I were an annoying debt collector. I got up from the dining room. I walked in circles around the living room. I had to see him. I had to talk to him face to face. I put on a shirt, grabbed the keys, and left. I took the bus to the neighborhood where Michael lived. I got off at the corner. I walked the 3 blocks that were missing. The sun hit hard. I was sweating. I arrived at the gated community. I rang the bell at the gate. I waited. Nobody answered. I rang again. Nothing. I knew there was someone inside. Michael's car was parked outside. I saw a shadow move behind the living room curtain. Michael, open up. It is your father. My voice sounded desperate, pathetic. I rang the bell several times in a row. The door opened, but only a little. It was Linda. She looked at me through the crack with that cold face she always put on. David Michael is not here. Liar. I had seen his car. His car's out there, Linda. I know he's inside. She sighed as if I were a stubborn child. He is busy, David. He cannot attend to you now. I put my hand on the door to prevent her from closing it. I need to talk to him. I got an eviction notice. They are going to sell my house. Linda showed not a shred of surprise, as if she already knew, as if she herself had planned it. That you have to discuss with Michael, but right now he cannot. I tried to push the door. She held it with force. David, do not make a scene. The neighbors are watching. I looked around. She was right. Several windows of the nearby houses had curtains moving. People spying. I let go. Tell him I'm going to wait here until he comes out. Linda closed the door without answering. I stayed standing outside the gate, like an idiot, waiting. 5 minutes. 10. 15. The sun burned the back of my neck. A man came out of the house next door. He looked at me with curiosity. A lady walking her dog stopped. She pretended to check her cell phone, but watched me out of the corner of her eye. I felt exposed, humiliated. But I was not going to leave. Not until talking with my son. I rang the bell again. Michael, come out and face me. My voice broke a little at the end. I knew I was making a spectacle. I knew the neighbors were going to talk about this. But I did not care anymore. I rang the bell again and again. The door did not open. Michael did not come out. My own son was treating me like an undesirable stranger. Then I heard an engine. A car was coming down the street. I turned. It was the Nissan. My Nissan. Barbara was at the wheel. She saw me standing there at the gate, and something in her face changed. She smiled. That smile I already knew. She accelerated a little, got closer, and just when she passed in front of me, she honked the horn. Loud, long, like mocking. She braked abruptly a few meters from me. She lowered the window, stuck her head out. What is happening, David? Did you lose your house keys too? She laughed, a sharp, cruel laugh that drilled into my chest. Some neighbors who were in their gardens turned to see us. She accelerated and left, leaving a trail of exhaust smoke, and that laugh resonating in my ears. I stood there frozen, with my face burning with shame. An older man, about 70, crossed the street toward me. I recognized him. It was Mr. Duran Michael's neighbor, a good man who always greeted me when I came to visit. David, are you okay? His voice was soft, worried. He looked at me like one looks at someone who has just had an accident. What happened? Do you need anything? I opened my mouth to answer, but the words did not come out. What was I going to tell him? That my son had taken my house, that my daughter-in-law humiliated me, that my mother-in-law had stolen my car. How to explain something like that, without sounding like a crazy and bitter old man? I am fine, thanks. It was all I managed to say, but my voice was trembling. Mr. Duran did not believe me. Are you sure I saw you shouting? Do you want me to call someone? I shook my head fast. The only thing I wanted was to leave, to disappear. I did not want more looks. I did not want more pity. No thanks. I was just leaving. I walked fast toward the corner. Mr. Duran followed me with his gaze. I felt the eyes of all the neighbors stuck in my back. The humiliation crushed me like a giant stone. I arrived at the bus stop. I sat on the hot metal bench. I covered my face with my hands. And there in the middle of the street, with people passing by, I let the tears come out. I arrived home at dusk. I opened the door. Everything was dark and silent. I turned on the living room light. I sat on the floor, not on the sofa. On the floor with my back against the wall. I took out an old photo album I kept in a drawer. I opened it slowly. There was everything. Our wedding in a small church in Chicago. My wife with a simple white dress. Me with a borrowed suit. We were smiling as if the world were ours. I turned the page. Michael's birth. She holding him in the hospital. Me with a face of fear and happiness at the same time. Another photo. Michael learning to walk in this same living room. My wife crouching with open arms waiting for him. A tear fell on the photo of my wife. I wiped the glass with the sleeve of my shirt. I am sorry, honey. I did not know how to protect what we built. I spoke to her in a low voice, as if she could hear me. I do not know what to do. They are taking everything from me. The hardware store, the car, and now the house. Our house. I closed the album slowly. I hugged it against my chest. And there I stayed, sitting on the floor of my own house, knowing that in 30 days it would no longer be mine. 30 days to disappear. 30 days to become nothing. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in my life I wished not to wake up the next day. 3 more days passed. 3 days in which I almost did not eat. I almost did not sleep. I only walked from one room to another, in the house, seeing the walls, the furniture, the photos, thinking about where I was going to live in 30 days. I did not have much money saved, maybe enough to rent a room in some tenement. Maybe I would have to go to a shelter. The idea turned my stomach. Friday afternoon, someone knocked on the door. My heart jumped. I thought it was Michael, that he had finally come. I walked fast. I opened the door, but it was not him. It was a young woman about 30 years old, thin with glasses and hair tied in a ponytail. I recognized her vaguely. David? Her voice was soft and nervous. I got your address from the hardware store registry. I stood looking at her without understanding. I am Sarah Linda's younger sister. The last name made me tense up. Another one from that family. I was going to close the door, but she raised her hand. Please, David, I need to talk to you. It is important. There was something in her voice. It was not Linda's coldness. It was not Barbara's mockery. It was urgency, fear, maybe. I looked her in the eyes. She held my gaze. What do you want? I asked dryly. To tell you the truth about what is happening. About Linda. About my mother. I hesitated. Every fiber of my body told me not to trust anyone from that family, but something in her face made me doubt. You have 5 minutes. I opened the door completely. Sarah entered slowly, looking around as if she feared someone was following her. She sat on the edge of the sofa. She took a folder out of her bag. She put it on the coffee table. I work as an accountant, David. I handle the books for several small businesses. 6 months ago, Linda asked me to help her with the accounting of the hardware store. She opened the folder. Inside were sheets with numbers, bank statements, invoices. At first, everything seemed normal, but I started noticing strange things. Duplicate invoices, expenses that did not add up money, leaving the hardware store account and not arriving at any supplier. I got closer. I looked at the papers. I did not understand much about accounting, but I saw the red numbers. What are you telling me? My voice came out hoarse. Sarah took a deep breath before answering. My sister's stealing David. She's diverting money from the hardware store to a personal account. She has been doing it for almost 2 years. I felt the floor moving under my feet. I sat heavily on the sofa opposite her. How much? She turned several pages, pointed to a column. $84,000, more or less. The figure hit me like a punch. Almost $100,000. Money that I had earned, that I had sweated for, that I had built sale by sale for 40 years. Does Michael know? Sarah shook her head. I do not think so. My sister handles all the money. He only works in the warehouse with the customers. Sarah took out more papers. Yellow invoices, some with stamps, others without them. Look at this. These invoices are fake. Suppliers that do not exist. Purchases that were never made. Linda creates them, puts them in the system, takes the money out of the hardware store account, and deposits it here. She pointed to a bank statement. An account in the name of Linda Smith. That is Linda's maiden name. She opened the account 2 years ago. Nobody else knows about it. I looked at the numbers. Deposits of $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. Over and over, for months. I felt the rage rising up my throat, but I also felt something else. Fear. Because if this was true, it meant I had been a fool. And your mother? I asked suddenly. Sarah lowered her gaze. She took off her glasses, cleaned them with her blouse, put them back on. My mother knows, David. Her voice broke a little. She is an accomplice. She signed as a witness on several fake documents here. She took out a sheet. It was a sales contract. My land in Indiana. I saw my signature, but there was another signature below. Witness, Barbara Smith. She knew that land was yours. She knew the money from the sale was used to buy the Nissan, and she knew Linda was going to take it from you to give it to her. Everything was planned from the beginning. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. My mother-in-law, the woman who laughed at me, who humiliated me, was a thief. I opened my eyes and looked straight at Sarah. Why are you telling me this? The question sounded harder than I wanted. She held my gaze. Because it is not right, David. Because what they are doing is criminal. And because... She stopped. Tears filled her eyes. Because you were always good to me. When I was a girl and my mom took me to the hardware store, you always gave me candy. You asked me how school was going. You treated me as if I were your granddaughter. And when my dad died, you lent money to my mom for the funeral, without interest, without pressuring her. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. You are a good person, and you do not deserve this. I felt a knot in my throat. I did not remember having done anything special. I had only treated Sarah as one treats any child, with affection, with respect, but for her it had meant something. Does your mom know you are here? Sarah shook her head fast. Nobody knows. If Linda or my mom find out, I do not know what they're going to do. She was afraid. It showed in her voice, in how she looked toward the window every few seconds. I have more things to show you, David. She took out another folder. This one was thicker. Documents of the land in Indiana. Contracts. Bank transfers. She opened the folder and started showing me papers one by one, and with each paper, my world became darker and darker. Sarah put in front of me the sales document of the land in Indiana. I recognized it. I had signed it 2 years ago. Do you remember how much they gave you for the land, I thought? $80,000. She nodded. Correct. And do you remember who you gave that money to? I closed my eyes. To Michael for the business to buy more inventory so the hardware store would grow. Sarah shook her head. No, David, look. She showed me a bank transfer from Michael's account to a car dealership. Date: 2 weeks after selling the land. Amount: $25,000. That is the price of the Nissan. Michael used your money to buy the car, and then he gave it to you as if it were his. The air escaped from my lungs. I stood looking at the paper without being able to process what I was seeing. That car, my voice came out as a whisper, that car was always yours, from the beginning. Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, David, it was bought with the money from your land. Linda convinced Michael that it was a good idea. Gift it to your dad. He is going to be happy. But from the start, the plan was to take it from you, give it to my mom, and humiliate you in the process. I felt something break inside me. It was not just rage, it was betrayal. Deep, painful. My son had used my money to buy me a gift, and then allowed them to take it from me. Why was all I could say. Sarah closed the folders slowly. Because Linda wants you out, David. Out of the hardware store, out of the house. She wants to sell everything, keep the money, and start from zero. Without you. And my mother supports her because she promised her a cut. I leaned back on the sofa. I closed my eyes. Everything made sense now. The dispossession. The humiliations. Michael's silence. Everything was part of a plan to erase me. What can I do? I asked without opening my eyes. Sarah touched my hand. Her hand was warm. Fight David. With these proofs, we can go to the police. We can get everything back. I opened my eyes and looked at her. For the first time in weeks, I felt something similar to hope. Small, fragile. But there it was. If you are listening to my story, please tell me in the comments where you are watching us from. Sometimes knowing that there are people listening to me gives me the strength I need to continue. The next day, Sarah returned to my house early. She brought the folders under her arm and a determination in her eyes that I did not have. David, let us go to the precinct. Now, I hesitated. I am not a man of courts or police. All my life I solved things working, keeping quiet without getting into trouble. But Sarah insisted. If you do not do something now, you are going to lose everything. The house, the hardware store, your dignity, everything." She was right. I put on a clean shirt, the best one I had. Sarah called a taxi. During the ride to the precinct in Oak Park, we did not talk much. I looked out the window, watching the streets pass that I had known for 40 years. I wondered if in a few months I would no longer be there. If I would have to go somewhere else, start from scratch, like when I arrived from Detroit at 27. But now I was 67, and I was tired, so tired. We arrived at the precinct, a gray, ugly building with bars on the windows and a smell of humidity and bleach. Sarah asked for Officer Miller. They made us wait an hour on some uncomfortable plastic chairs. I watched police passing people with handcuffs. Women crying, men shouting. I felt out of place. Finally, they called us. We entered a small office with a metal desk and a fan that did not work well. Officer Miller was a man about 50 years old, thick mustache, impeccable uniform. He looked at us with that face of, "And now what do you want that officials put on when you are interrupting their routine?" Sarah spoke first. She explained everything. Fast, clear, professional. She showed him the documents, the bank statements, the fake invoices. I was just sitting there feeling small. Officer Miller took the papers, reviewed them, slowly frowned, turned the pages, made notes in a notebook. The silence was tense. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. After what seemed like an eternity, Miller left the papers on the desk and looked at us seriously. "This is grave." Sarah nodded. "That is why we are here, officer. We need you to investigate." He looked at the papers again, this time with more attention. He pointed to the bank statement. "Is this account in the name of Linda Smith?" Sarah confirmed. "Yes, sir. It is her personal account. She diverted money from the hardware store there for almost 2 years." Miller wrote something else. "And this land," he pointed to the sales document. "I spoke for the first time. It was mine. I sold it to help my son. But the money was used to buy a car that was later taken from me." Miller looked at me with something resembling compassion. Or maybe it was pity. I could not tell. "David let me review the documents well. I am going to speak with the Financial Crimes Office. This could be fraud, falsification of documents, embezzlement." Every word he said gave me back a little hope. Sarah also seemed relieved. "How long will it take, officer?" He closed the notebook. "Come back in 3 days, David. By Friday, I will have an answer. I promise you I am going to review everything carefully." We got up. I shook his hand. "Thanks, officer, really." He nodded. "You do not have to thank me. It is my job. And if what you are telling me is true, your daughter-in-law is going to have many problems." We left the precinct. Sarah hugged me in the street. "You see, David, there is hope." For the first time in weeks, I felt something resembling peace. As if after falling so much, finally someone had caught me before hitting the bottom. Sarah went to work. I took the bus back home. But this time I did not look out the window with sadness. I looked at the streets as if I were reclaiming them, as if the city were waiting for me again. I arrived home and sat in the living room. I looked around. The old furniture, the photos on the wall, the tile floor my wife and I had chosen together 30 years ago. "Maybe I will not have to leave Honey," I told her photo. "Maybe there is still justice in this world." I allowed myself to smile. It was a small, weak smile, but real. It had been so long since I smiled that my cheeks even hurt. That afternoon I went out to walk around the neighborhood. I wanted to clear my mind. At the corner I ran into Mr. Duran Michael's neighbor, the one who had seen me shouting at the gate. He was buying the newspaper at the stand. He saw me and approached. "David, how are you?" His voice was kind. "Better, Mr. Duran, much better." He looked at me surprised. "I'm glad to hear it. The other day I saw you very bad. I hesitated whether to tell him, but something in me needed to say it out loud. I needed someone else to know that I was not crazy, that I was not inventing things. I went to the precinct. I presented proof that my daughter-in-law is robbing me. The officer is going to investigate." Mr. Duran opened his eyes. Seriously, I nodded. Maybe I can recover my hardware store and my house. He patted my shoulder. I hope so, David. You are good people. You do not deserve what they are doing to you. The next 3 days were strange. On one hand, I felt hope. On the other, I was afraid everything would go wrong. But I decided to act as if I had already won. I cleaned the house thoroughly. I swept, mopped, dusted the furniture, washed. The curtains, changed the bed sheets. I unpacked the boxes I had started to fill for the move. I unpacked them. I put everything back in its place. The plates in the cupboard, the books on the shelf, the photos in their frames. It was as if I were telling the house, I'm not leaving, I am going to stay. And the house seemed to answer me. The light entered through the clean windows differently, warmer, more alive. At night, I sat in the dining room to have dinner. Something simple, beans, tortillas, but I ate it slowly, savoring every bite, feeling that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be all right. Friday arrived. I got up early, showered, put on the same clean shirt I had used on Monday. I took the bus to the precinct. Sarah was waiting for me outside. Ready, David? I nodded, although my heart was beating so fast I felt it was going to pop out of my chest. We entered. We asked for Officer Miller. This time they did not make us wait so long. They passed us to the same office. Miller was sitting behind the desk, but something was different. His face. It was not the same serious and professional face from 3 days ago. It was a face closed, hard. He avoided looking us in the eyes. That gave me a bad feeling immediately. I sat down slowly. Sarah also perceived the change. Officer, he cleared his throat. He moved some papers on the desk without really looking at them, and then he dropped the bomb. Look, David. He started with that voice bureaucrats use when they are going to give you bad news. I reviewed your case carefully. I spoke with my superiors, and unfortunately, this is archived. The world stopped. Archived. Sarah got up abruptly. What do you mean, archived? We showed you proof. Bank statements, fake invoices, forged signatures. Miller raised a hand, asking for calm. Miss, I understand your frustration, but there is not enough evidence to open a formal investigation. Sarah hit the desk with her palm. What more proof do you need? He shrugged. This could simply be a family misunderstanding. Disputes over properties. That is resolved in civil court, not criminal. His voice was monotone, as if he were reciting a script, as if they had told him exactly what to say. I remained sitting, looking at him, and suddenly I understood. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not incompetence. This was deliberate. How much did she pay you? The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. Miller went rigid. Excuse me. I got up slowly. I said, how much did my daughter-in-law pay you to archive this? His face turned red. David, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I'm not going to tolerate accusations. Sarah took me by the arm. Let us go, David. We are not going to get anything here. We left the office. We walked down the hallway of the precinct. We passed police officers who looked at us with curiosity. We went out to the street. The sun blinded me. I let myself fall on the stairs of the entrance. Sarah sat next to me. Neither of us spoke for a long time. 2 days later, Sarah called me. She sounded agitated. David, I have to tell you something. A friend of mine works at the precinct. She called me this morning. She paused. Officer Miller has been Linda's lover for more than a year. My friend saw them together in a restaurant a few months ago. Linda visited him the same day we filed the complaint. She spoke with him alone in his office for more than an hour. I closed my eyes. Of course. Everything made sense now. Miller's closed face, his refusal to investigate, the immediate archiving of the case. Linda had arranged everything. She had moved her pieces before I even knew we were playing. David, are you there? Sarah's voice sounded distant. Yes, Sarah, I am here. I hung up the phone. I stayed sitting in the dark of my living room, and for the first time I felt hope slipping through my fingers like sand. A week passed since the incident at the precinct. A week in which I did not leave the house. I did not eat well. I did not sleep well. I only walked from room to room, like a ghost in my own home. I knew the eviction was approaching. 22 days, 21, 20. I counted every day that passed as if they were the last of my life. Wednesday afternoon, I heard knocking at the door. Loud, insistent. I got up from the sofa where I had spent the whole morning staring at the ceiling. I opened the door. It was Michael, but he did not come alone. Behind him were two men, one dressed formally in a gray suit and blue tie, the other in a white uniform like those used in hospitals. My son looked at me, but not in the eyes. He looked at my forehead, my chin, anything but my eyes. "Dad, we need to talk." His voice sounded strange, forced, as if he were acting in a play he had not rehearsed well. "Who are they?" I asked, pointing to the two men. The one in the suit stepped forward. He smiled, but it was a professional smile without warmth. "David, I am Dr. Stevens, a psychiatrist, and this is my assistant, Nurse Johnson." He extended his hand. I did not shake it. "Psychiatrist." "What do I need a psychiatrist for?" Michael cleared his throat. "Dad, Linda told me that you have been signing papers you do not remember, that you have been confused shouting in the street, that the other day you went to the precinct to accuse your own family of theft. Every word was a stab. We think that maybe you need to be checked out, for your own good." Dr. Stevens nodded with that rehearsed, calm doctors have when they want to convince you of something. "It is just a checkup, David routine to rule out any cognitive problems." Cognitive problems. They wanted to make me believe I was crazy. I tried to close the door. "I do not need any checkup. I am perfectly fine. Leave." But Michael put his foot in the door. "Dad, please do not make this more difficult." The nurse took a step forward, too. He was a big guy, broad shoulders, thick arms, a silent threat, Dr. Coward. Stevens spoke again this time with a firmer tone, more threatening disguised as concern. "David, I understand your reluctance. It is normal. Many patients in the early stages of senile dementia do not recognize their symptoms. They deny that something is wrong. But it is for your own good that we do this evaluation. If you do not cooperate, we are going to have to consider more formal measures." He said it softly, but the message was clear. Either I submitted voluntarily, or they were going to force me. I looked at Michael. "Do you agree with this?" He lowered his gaze. He did not answer. I looked out the door. In the street was Michael's car. Already inside, in the passenger seat, was Linda, and next to her in the back seat was Barbara. The two of them were looking at me. Linda with that expressionless face she always put on. Barbara with a little smile, as if she were enjoying a show. They looked at me the way one looks at a wounded animal about to be put down. I felt rage rising, but I also felt fear, real fear, because in that moment I understood that this was not a medical checkup. This was a trap. They wanted to declare me crazy, legally incapacitated, and thus keep everything without me being able to fight. I took a deep breath. If I resisted, they were going to use that against me. They were going to say I was violent, that I was dangerous, that I needed to be committed. I had no way out. "Okay," I said finally. "I will take the exam, but here in my house." They entered. Dr. Stevens and the nurse sat in the living room. Michael remained standing near the door, uncomfortable as if he wanted to be anywhere else but there. The doctor took a folder out of his briefcase. "We are going to ask some simple questions, David. There are no right or wrong answers. We just want to evaluate your cognitive state." He opened the folder. He took out a sheet with printed questions. "What is today's date?" I looked at him. "Wednesday, October 18th. He wrote something. "What year are we in 2023? He wrote again. "Who is the President of the United States? Joe Biden." Another note, the questions continued. "How many children do you have?" "One." "Michael, do you remember your address, 47 Maple Street?" "What did you have for breakfast today?" I stopped. I did not remember eating breakfast. I did not eat breakfast. The doctor raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" "Because I was not hungry." He wrote something longer this time. The questions became more personal, more humiliating. "Do you feel sad often?" Yes, why lie? It was the truth. Have you thought about hurting yourself? I stayed silent. David, answer, please. No, I lied. Because yes, I had thought about that. In the early mornings when I could not sleep and the weight of everything crushed me. Have you had memory problems recently? No. Are you sure your son mentioned that you signed documents you do not remember? I looked at Michael. He avoided my gaze. I remember perfectly everything I signed. And I remember perfectly that they tricked me. The doctor wrote something, long, detailed. I wondered what he was writing. What false diagnosis was he inventing to justify what came next? The nurse watched me expressionlessly, like a security guard waiting for someone to cause trouble. After half an hour of questions, Dr. Stevens closed the folder. Very well, David. We are finished. He got up. He told me nothing else. He did not explain the results. He gave me no conclusion. He just put everything in his briefcase. Michael approached, and Dr. Stevens looked at him. He spoke in a low voice, but I heard perfectly. There are signs of mild cognitive impairment. Nothing alarming for now, but I recommend close monitoring. If there are changes, aggressive behavior, severe confusion, delusions, we could consider a more formal evaluation, possibly temporary institutionalization. Institutionalization. The word floated in the air like a death sentence. Michael nodded. I understand. They looked toward me as if I were not there, as if I were a piece of furniture they were deciding what to do with. I got up. I want to see what you wrote. The doctor shook his head. It is confidential, David. I will give it to your son. They left. The three of them. Michael did not even say goodbye. He closed the door behind him. I stayed standing in the middle of the living room. My hands were trembling. I walked toward the window. I watched them get into the car. The doctor and the nurse left in another car. Michael stayed talking with Linda and Barbara. They gestured. Barbara laughed. Linda nodded. Michael looked tired. After a few minutes, he started the car, and they left. I sat on the sofa. I felt the walls closing in on me. Cognitive impairment, close monitoring, institutionalization, words they were going to use to destroy me, to declare me incompetent, to take away even my right to defend myself. I wondered how much time I had before they returned, before they knocked on the door with a court order and took me by force. A week, maybe 2. I stayed there sitting while it got dark, without turning on the lights, just me and my fear. The next day I did not leave the house. I was afraid that if I went out when I returned, the door would be locked with a padlock and my things in the street. I stayed inside watching through the window. Every car that passed made me nervous. Every noise made me jump. Mid-morning I saw a familiar car park in front of my house. It was the Nissan. My Nissan. Barbara got out. She was carrying a shopping bag. She walked calmly toward the front door of my house. She tapped on the window. She turned. She saw me and smiled. She did not knock on the door. She just stood there outside looking at me through the glass. She raised her hand. She waved, a slow, mocking wave. Then she turned around and left. The message was clear. I know where you live. I can come whenever I want. It was a form of psychological torture, to remind me that I no longer had control over anything, not even my own safety. Before getting into the car, Barbara stopped. She turned toward me again. She shouted loud enough for me to hear through the closed glass. David, sometimes, it is better to accept that one can no longer be alone. Nursing homes are not that bad. There are people your age there. You will be better off. She said it with that sing-song voice, fake full of poison disguised as concern. A neighbor walking his dog looked at her strangely. She smiled at him as if nothing happened. She got into the Nissan. She started it, accelerated, and left, leaving a cloud of smoke. I stayed standing behind the window. My legs were trembling. My chest was rising and falling fast. Nursing homes. She wanted to put me in a nursing home, lock me up with people I did not know, in a place where I would lose even my name, where I would be just another forgotten old man waiting for death. I let myself fall onto the sofa, and for the first time since all this started, I cried without trying to stop. I cried for hours. I cried until I had no tears left. I cried for my wife who was no longer there to advise me. I cried for my son who had betrayed me. I cried for the hardware store I built with my hands. I cried for the house that was no longer mine. I cried for the car they stole from me. I cried for my trampled dignity. I cried for the 67 years I live believing that if you worked hard and were honest, life rewarded you. Lie. It was all a lie. The world did not reward the good. The world devoured them. And I had been devoured, chewed up, spat out. When I stopped crying, it was already night. The house was dark. I stayed there, sitting on the sofa in total darkness, feeling that I was no longer a man. I was just a nuisance. A problem someone had to solve. And the solution they had chosen was to erase me, make me disappear. And I no longer had the strength to fight. The 30 days ran out faster than I imagined. A Monday morning, a sheriff's deputy arrived with 2 men. They knocked on the door at 7 in the morning. I was awake. I had not slept all night. I opened. The officer showed me some papers. David Miller. I have an eviction order. You have 2 hours to remove your belongings. His voice was mechanical, without emotion. The 2 men behind him were big arms crossed, waiting for me to resist. I did not. What for? I had already fought all I could. I had already lost. 2 hours, my voice came out hoarse. Yes, sir. 2 hours. I closed the door. I looked around. 35 years of life in this house. How do you pack 35 years in 2 hours? I took 2 old suitcases out of the closet, the same ones I had arrived with from Detroit 40 years ago. Life takes strange turns. I started putting clothes in, shirts, pants, underwear. Not much, just what was necessary. Then photos. The wedding album. Photos of Michael as a child. The photo of my wife I always carried in my wallet. I put it in my shirt pocket next to my heart. Some important documents. My birth certificate. Michael's certificates, nothing else. The furniture stayed. The bed where I slept with my wife for 30 years. The dining room where we celebrated birthdays. The armchair where Michael sat to watch cartoons on Saturday mornings. Everything stayed. It was not mine. It never was, legally. At 9 in the morning, the officer knocked again. David, it is time. I went out with my 2 suitcases. The men entered to check that I did not take anything that was not mine, as if I were a thief. I closed the door behind me. I did not look back at the house. If I did, I was going to break. I took a taxi. I told the driver to take me to the south side near the old industrial park. He looked at me strangely in the mirror. There? Are you sure, sir? I nodded. That neighborhood is not pretty. It is a tough neighborhood of people surviving however they can. But it was the only thing my savings could afford. We arrived at a narrow street with old buildings peeling paint cables hanging from poles. The driver helped me get the suitcases down. Take care, sir. He left fast. I entered a 3-story building. A large woman with an apron received me at the entrance. Looking for a room, her voice was raspy from smoking. Yes, ma'am. She took me to the 2nd floor. She opened a door. $150 a week. Shared bathroom at the end of the hall. No visitors after 10. The room was small, a twin bed, an old wooden wardrobe, a window facing an interior patio, nothing else. I will take it. I paid the first week in cash. The neighbors were mixed. In the room next door lived a young bricklayer who arrived every night covered in dust. Across the hall, a tattooed guy who went out little and listened to music at full volume. At the end of the hall, an older woman who sold tamales on the street. They were tough people. Some with stories you do not want to know, but they treated me with respect. Nobody asked where you came from or why you were there. In that neighborhood, you learn not to get involved in others' lives. I settled in. I hung my clothes in the wardrobe. I put my wife's photo on the nightstand. That night, lying in that strange bed, in that room that smelled of humidity and bleach, I thought about everything I had lost, and I asked myself if it was worth going on, if it would not be easier to simply disappear. But I did not do it. I do not know why. Maybe out of stubbornness, maybe because I still had a thread of rage keeping me alive. The next day I started looking for work. It was not easy. 67 years old, without recent references, without formal studies. I went to hardware stores. We do not hire older people, sir, sorry. I went to mechanic shops. We need people who can keep up the pace. I went to stores. We already have staff. After a week looking, I found a sign in the window of a supermarket. Bagger wanted. Apply within. I went. A young manager interviewed me, about 30 years old, with a loose tie and a bored face. He looked at my ID, 67 years old. He said it as if it were a defect. Yes, sir. But I can work. I am strong. He sighed. Well, the truth is, nobody wants this job. We will give you a chance. $200 a week. Shift from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. No benefits. Interested, $200. Barely enough for the room and food. But I had no choice. Interested. They gave me a bright orange vest, 2 sizes too big, and a plastic badge with my name, David Bagger. The first day was humiliating. Standing at the cash registers, waiting for customers to finish paying, to put their groceries in bags. Some thanked me, others did not even look at me. Some gave me tips. $0.25, and I accepted them because I needed them. There were other baggers' kids, 17, 18 years old, who did the job fast, efficiently. I was slow. My hands were not as agile. My back hurt after standing so many hours. But I kept going day after day, putting cans, boxes, bags of bread into plastic bags. My life had been reduced to this, to being invisible in a supermarket. An old man in an orange vest that people looked at with pity or indifference. Thus passed 2 weeks. 2 weeks of barely surviving. One Saturday afternoon, I was at Register 3 bagging the groceries of a lady who had bought half the supermarket. Milk, eggs, meat, fruits, vegetables. I put everything in carefully so nothing would break. I looked up for a second, and I saw him. Michael. Entering the supermarket with Linda. She was wearing dark glasses and an elegant blouse. He was wearing a plaid shirt and jeans. They looked normal, happy like any couple doing the weekend shopping. My heart stopped. I froze with a can of beans in my hand. Michael walked toward the registers with a full cart. Linda said something to him, and he laughed. They were heading straight to where I was. 3 registers away, and they would reach mine. I did not know what to do. It will run away. But my legs did not respond. I could only watch them getting closer and closer. Michael looked up. He saw me. Our eyes met for half a second. I saw something in his face. Surprise, shame, panic, all together. I waited. I waited for him to come to speak to me, to ask how I was, but he did not. He looked away immediately. He said something to Linda in a low voice. She saw me too, but her face showed nothing, neither surprise nor pity, only indifference. Michael pushed the cart toward Register 5-2 registers, away from where I was. They lined up there with their backs to me as if I did not exist. The lady who was paying at my register noticed something in my face. Are you okay, sir? Yes, ma'am, I am fine, I lied. I finished bagging her things. She left. I stayed there, standing, watching my son pay for his things, put the bags in his cart, and leave the supermarket, without turning even once toward where I was. Without a hello, without a how, are you, nothing. The next week was worse. It was Tuesday morning. I was restocking cans in the canned goods aisle, standing on a small ladder arranging tuna cans on the highest shelf. I heard heels hitting the ceramic floor of the supermarket. I turned, and there she was, Barbara, with a floral dress, a big bag hanging from her shoulder lips, painted red. She walked slowly down the aisle, looking at the products as if she were choosing carefully. But I knew she was not there by chance. Her neighborhood was far from here. She had come on purpose to find me, to humiliate me one more time. I got down from the ladder. I tried to walk toward another aisle, but she saw me. She smiled. That smile I knew so well. She walked directly toward me. "Oh, David. What a coincidence finding you here." She said it loud. Very loud. Customers nearby turned to look at us. I did not answer. I just lowered my head and tried to keep arranging cans. But Barbara was not going to leave that easily. She got closer. She stood right in front of me, blocking my path. She spoke even louder so everyone could hear. Oh, how sad, right? To see people who were someone who had their business, their house, their family, and ended up like this bagging cans in a supermarket. She made a dramatic pause. Some customers stopped pretending they were looking at products, but clearly listening. But that is life, David. Some were born to command others to obey. She laughed. A loud, exaggerated laugh, full of cruelty. I clenched my fists. I felt the rage rising up my chest. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her she was a thief, an accomplice, a woman without dignity. But I did not do it because I knew if I reacted, if I caused a scene, I would lose this job too. And then I would have absolutely nothing left. So I stayed quiet, swallowing the humiliation, swallowing the tears. Barbara left laughing. Her heels echoed down the aisle until she left the supermarket. I stayed there with a can of tuna in my hand, shaking. An older man who had seen everything approached. He was about 70, cane in hand, kind face. He stood by my side and spoke in a low voice so only I could hear. "That lady is bad. David very bad. I do not know how he knew my name. Maybe he saw my badge. Maybe he simply called me that out of respect. It did not matter. The fact that someone a stranger had seen Barbara's cruelty and given me even a word of comfort was like a glass of water in the desert. I nodded slowly. I could not speak. If I opened my mouth, I was going to cry. The man put his hand on my shoulder for a second, then left. I climbed back up the ladder. I kept arranging cans one by one, mechanically without thinking. Because if I allowed myself to think, if I allowed myself to feel, I was going to collapse right there in the middle of the aisle. And I had already lost too much. I was not going to lose my dignity, too. 3 more weeks passed. 3 weeks of the same routine. Getting up at 6 in the morning in that cold room on the south side. Showering in the shared bathroom with water that sometimes came out freezing. Putting on the orange vest. Taking the bus to the supermarket. Working 8 hours bagging groceries, restocking products, sweeping aisles, receiving tips of $0.25 or $1 that I kept in a jar for food, returning to the room at dusk, buying tacos at the corner stand, eating alone in my room, lying down staring at the ceiling. This was my life now, a cycle without end, without hope, without future, just surviving one more day. One Thursday afternoon near 3 o'clock, I was at Register 2 bagging the groceries of a young lady with a baby in her arms. She gave me $2 tip. I thanked her. I looked up to take the next customer, and there was an older man with a cane, a straw hat, thick white mustache, hair long to his shoulders. He was looking at me with eyes wide open as if he had seen a ghost. Beppo Abba Miller, his voice was strong, clear, incredulous. I looked at him closer. There was something familiar in that face and those eyes, but I could not place it. There had been so many customers in 40 years of the hardware store. "Yes, sir." "Do I know you?" The man left his cart to the side. He got closer. "I am Herbert. Herbert Thompson. Customer of your hardware store for, my God, it must be 30 years. The pieces started to fit in my head. Mr. Thompson. Of course. A man who bought materials for his projects. Always polite. Always paid in cash. "Mr. Thompson." My voice broke. He extended his hand. I shook it. His hand was firm, warm. "What are you doing here, David? In a supermarket? Bagging groceries?" His tone was not of mockery. It was of genuine confusion, of concern. I shrugged. "I work here. It is honest work." I tried to sound dignified, but my voice came out hollow. Mr. Thompson shook his head. "No, no, no. This is not right. You are the owner of a hardware store. What happened?" I looked around. There were people waiting. The manager was watching us from afar with an unfriendly face. "Mr. Thompson, I am working. I cannot talk now." He understood. "What time do you get off?" "At 4. He looked at his watch. "Then I will wait for you outside. We are going to have a coffee." I will not take no for an answer, David. And without waiting for my reply, he took his cart and went to another register. My mind was confused. Why would Mr. Thompson want to have coffee with me? I was nobody, just an old man bagging groceries. But something in his tone and his look made me feel, I do not know, maybe hope, maybe just curiosity. At 4 sharp, I left the supermarket. I took off my badge. Thompson was outside, sitting on a bench, waiting for me. He got up when he saw me. "Come, David, there is a diner on the corner." We walked in silence. The diner was small, with plastic tables and old chairs. We ordered 2 coffees. We sat facing each other. Mr. Thompson looked at me with those eyes that seemed to read my soul. "Now tell me, David, what happened. And do not tell me you are helping some friends or anything like that. You have known me for 30 years. I know you. Tell me the truth." His tone was firm but kind. It was not a demand. It was an invitation. And something inside me broke. All the accumulated pressure, all the rage, all the pain I had been keeping for months came out. I told him everything. From the beginning. The car Michael gave me with the money from my land. How Linda gave it to Barbara. How they kicked me out of the hardware store. The eviction notice. The archived complaint because the officer was Linda's lover. The psychiatric exam. The threat of institutionalization. The loss of the house. The cheap room. The supermarket. Everything. Mr. Thompson listened without interrupting. He just nodded occasionally, his face getting more serious. When I finished speaking, I stayed silent. Mr. Thompson, too. He stayed looking at his coffee, stirring it slowly with the spoon, although it no longer had sugar to dissolve. Finally he spoke, and his voice came out low, loaded with emotion. "I owe you a lot, David." I looked up. "What are you saying?" He looked me straight in the eyes. "My daughter, my Lucy. About 15 years ago. She was 25. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 3. His voice broke. He took a deep breath before continuing. "I was still working as a lawyer, but all the money went to chemotherapy, doctors, medicines. It was not enough. I needed to expand my house so Lucy could live with us during the treatment. I went to your hardware store. I asked you for materials, cement, rebar blocks, paint everything. I told you I would pay you as soon as I could. And do you know what you told me?" I shook my head. I did not remember. "You told me, take what you need, Mr. Thompson. Pay me when you can, no rush. No interest. You gave me materials on credit for 8 months. $80,000 worth in total. You never pressured me. You never sent debt collectors. You never charged me $1 of interest. When finally I could pay you a year later, you refused to receive the interest. You told me the capital is enough, Mr. Thompson. The important thing is that your daughter is okay." Tears filled his eyes. My Lucy survived. She is alive. She is 38 years old now, 2 children, and she is alive thanks to the fact that I could build that room, give her a dignified place to recover. And that was thanks to you. I did not know what to say. I did not even remember doing it. For me, it had been something normal, something any decent person would do. "Mr. Thompson, He raised his hand, interrupting me. "No, David. Do not minimize what you did. You saved my daughter. You saved me. And now it is my turn to return the favor." He leaned forward. "I was a criminal defense lawyer. I retired 5 years ago, but I still have my license. I still know how the laws work. And what you just told me, that is not just unfair. It is criminal. Fraud. Falsification of documents, embezzlement, breach of trust. There are enough crimes there to put your daughter-in-law and your mother-in-law in jail for years." His words hit me like a wave. Jail was their really legal hope. "But Mr. Thompson, I already went to the police. They archived the case. The officer is Linda's lover. There is nothing to do." He smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knows how the system works. Then we do not go back to that precinct. We go higher, to the state attorney's office, directly. With solid evidence. He took out his cell phone. Do you still have contact with Sarah Linda's sister who helped you? I nodded. Yes, I have her number. Call her. Now. I dialed Sarah's number. It rang 3 times. David. Her voice sounded surprised. Sarah, I am with Mr. Herbert Thompson. He was a customer of the hardware store. He is a lawyer. He says he can help us. There was silence on the other end. Seriously. Very seriously, replied Mr. Thompson, getting closer to the phone. Miss Sarah, I need you to gather all the evidence you have. Bank statements, fake invoices, signed documents, everything. We meet tomorrow. We are going to build a case so solid that not even the governor will be able to archive it. I heard Sarah take a deep breath. Okay, see you tomorrow. I will send you the address of my office. We hung up. Mr. Thompson looked at me with determination. We are going to recover everything of yours, David, and we are going to make them pay. I promise you. That night I returned to my room with something I had not felt in months. Hope. Real. Tangible. Mr. Thompson was not like Officer Miller. He had no hidden motives. He owed nothing to Linda or Barbara. He was an honest man who owed me a favor, and favors between men of honor are sacred debts. I lay down in that narrow bed, and for the first time in weeks I slept Betrayal. I dreamed of the hardware store, of my wife, of better times. The next day Mr. Thompson picked me up in his old but clean truck. We went to Sarah's office. She received us nervous looking out the window, as if she expected someone to be following her. She put 2 thick folders on the table. Here is everything. Mr. Thompson opened the folders and started to review. Page by page. He took notes in a notebook. He nodded. Underlined things. After an hour he closed the folders and looked at us both. This is gold, Miss Sarah. Pure legal gold. He pointed to a specific sheet. Look here, we have transfers from the hardware store account to a personal account in the name of Linda Smith. $150,000 in 2 years. Without justification. Without invoices to back it up. He turned to another sheet. Here invoices from suppliers that do not exist. I verified the tax IDs while reviewing. Fake. All of them. Another sheet. And here Barbara Smith's signature as a witness on the sale of David's land. She knew the money was going to be misused. She is an accomplice. Sarah and I looked at each other. Mr. Thompson continued. But there is more. He took out his cell phone. I investigated Linda Smith a little. It turns out she has an offshore account. In the Cayman Islands, not reported to the IRS, tax evasion, money laundering. Sarah opened her eyes wide. How did you know that Mr. Thompson smiled? I have contacts, miss. Good contacts. He closed the notebook. With this, you not only recover the hardware store and the house, David. With this, Linda and Barbara go to jail. I felt my chest fill with something I had not felt in so long I had almost forgotten it. Justice. Not revenge. Justice. Mr. Thompson got up. Tomorrow we go to the state attorney. The 3 of us. We present all this, and I guarantee you that this time they will investigate. Sarah looked scared but determined, and if Linda finds out, and if she does something, Mr. Thompson put his hand on her shoulder. That is why we go tomorrow early, without telling anyone. Element of surprise. He looked at me. David, are you ready to fight? I got up. For the first time in months, I felt like the man I had been. The man who drove trucks across mountains. The man who built a business from nothing. The man who did not give up. I am ready, Mr. Thompson, more than ready. And in that moment, something inside me that had been dead for so long beat again. Hope had returned, and with it the strength to fight one last time. Sarah called Michael 3 days later. She told him they needed to resolve everything as a family, that she was tired of seeing how things had gotten out of control, that it was time to talk calmly all together without shouting or fighting. Michael accepted. Linda, too. Barbara suggested it be at her house. We are comfortable there. I will make coffee. Sarah accepted. It was perfect. Barbara thought that if the meeting was in her territory, she would control everything. But she was very wrong. Mr. Thompson and I arrived an hour early. We stayed in the car, half a block away. We reviewed the documents one more time. Ready. David, I nodded. My heart was beating fast, but it was no longer fear. It was determination. Ready. We knocked at 5 in the afternoon. Barbara opened the door. She saw me and her smile froze for half a second, but she recovered quickly. David! What a surprise! Her tone was ice-covered with honey. She looked at Mr. Thompson. And you, he extended his hand. Herbert Thompson, family mediator. Sarah asked me to come to help resolve this conflict in a civilized manner. Barbara looked him up and down. She accepted the hand reluctantly. Come in. The house smelled of fresh coffee. It was small but well arranged. Living room with floral fabric sofas. Coffee table with magazines, photos of Linda and Sarah on the wall. Michael was already there, sitting in an armchair, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Linda was by his side. Sarah arrived 5 minutes later. She sat far from her mother. Barbara acted as hostess. She brought coffee in porcelain cups, offered cookies, smiled, played her role of kind, concerned woman who only wanted the best for her family. Well, here we all are. What did you want to talk about? Her tone was condescending, as if she were doing a great favor by allowing us to be there. Mr. Thompson took out his briefcase. He put it on the coffee table. Thanks for receiving us, Mrs. Barbara. I'm going to be direct. There are legal and family issues that need to be clarified, and it is better to do it here in private before it escalates to higher authorities. Michael frowned. Higher authorities. What are you talking about? Mr. Thompson did not answer yet. He just opened the briefcase. Allow me to explain. He took out the first document, a bank statement. This is the account of Miller Hardware, registered in the name of Michael Miller, but originally owned by David Miller. Michael nodded. Yes, it is the business account. Mr. Thompson pointed to a column. Here we see withdrawals, large withdrawals. $20,000, $15,000, $8,000. Considerable sums leaving the account every month for 2 years. Michael leaned in to see better. Those withdrawals are made by Linda. She handles the money. They are to pay suppliers. Mr. Thompson nodded slowly. That is what she told you, right? He took out another paper. But here we have the invoices from those suppliers. And it turns out several of them do not exist. The silence was total. Linda tensed up. Michael took the invoices. He reviewed them one by one. His face was changing color, from normal to pale. What does this mean? Mr. Thompson took out more papers. It means your wife has been falsifying invoices, creating ghost suppliers, withdrawing money from the hardware store and depositing it here. He showed another statement. Personal account in the name of Linda Smith. $150,000 deposited in 2 years. Michael dropped the papers. He looked at Linda. Linda, his voice was a broken whisper. She did not look at him. She got up abruptly. This is ridiculous. Those documents could be fake. Besides, she pointed at David with her finger. He is senile. He has a medical diagnosis. Dr. Stevens evaluated him weeks ago. Cognitive impairment. He is inventing things. She took a paper out of her bag. The psychiatric report. Mr. Thompson took it, read it in 2 seconds, and left it on the table with contempt. Ma'am, that exam was done by a doctor you hired without a court order, without official protocol, and curiously just when David filed his first complaint. This paper has no legal value. What does have value, he pointed to the bank statements. Are these? Linda went pale. Sarah spoke for the first time. They are not fake, Linda. I took them from the system. I verified them. They are real. Linda looked at her as if she wanted to kill her. But Mr. Thompson had not finished. There is more. He took out another document. The sale of the land in Indiana. Property of David. Sold 2 years ago for $80,000. David gave that money to Michael for the business, but he looked at Michael. You used that money to buy a Nissan Versa and then gave it to your father as if it were yours. Michael opened his mouth, closed it. He had no words. I thought it was a good idea. Linda told me it was a good idea, Mr. Bout. Thompson continued. And then that car that was bought with the father's money was gifted to, he looked at Barbara, Mrs. Barbara, without David's permission. Barbara got up. That car was a gift from my daughter. There is nothing illegal in that. No, said Mr. Thompson calmly. There is nothing illegal in gifting a car, but there is something illegal in this. He took out another paper. Your signature, Mrs. Barbara, as a witness on the sale of the land. You knew that money was going to be misused. You are an accomplice. Barbara froze. Her face went from red to white in seconds. That is a lie. I only signed because my daughter asked me to. I knew nothing. Her voice rose in volume. I knew nothing. But Sarah got up. She walked toward her mother. Enough, Mom. Enough lying. She took out her cell phone. I saw the messages between you and Linda. I read them when I was reviewing the hardware store system. You planned everything with her. She showed her the cell phone. Barbara tried to take it, but Sarah pulled it away. You told Linda to get the old man out of the business, to keep everything, to give you a cut. I have it all here. Michael stood up, swaying. What? His voice was a choked scream. He looked at Linda. You planned this? Linda stood up too. Michael, it is not what it seems. But he backed away. It is not what it seems. You stole $150,000. You used my father's money. You took his house. His voice was breaking. Linda tried to approach, but he pushed her away with his hand. Do not touch me. At that moment, faces started appearing in the windows. Neighbors, acquaintances of Barbara. Sarah had discreetly notified several. They wanted to see. They wanted to know. And Barbara noticed. She looked at the windows. Her face of superiority crumbled. What did you do, Sarah? Barbara looked at her with horror. Did you tell them, the neighbors? Sarah nodded. Yes, Mom. Because all your life, you have believed you are better than everyone. All your life, you have humiliated people. And it is time they know who you really are. Mr. Thompson took out the last document. Offshore account, Cayman Islands, in the name of a Smith, not reported to the IRS, tax evasion, money laundering. With this, Mrs. Linda, you not only face charges for fraud, you face federal charges. Linda went completely pale. Barbara, too. Suddenly they understood. This was not just a family meeting. This was a trap, and they had fallen. Linda ran toward the door. Mr. Thompson raised his cell phone. I already called the police. They are outside. And it was true. The door opened. 2 police officers entered. Mr. Thompson showed them the documents. One of the officers looked at Linda. Linda Smith, you have an arrest warrant for fraud, document falsification, and tax evasion. They put the handcuffs on her. Linda was screaming. This is unfair. I did not do anything. Michael helped me. But Michael just looked at her as if she were a stranger. The police took her away. As she went out, all the neighbors watched her. The woman who believed herself so superior, handcuffed, crying, screaming. Barbara tried to follow her, but Sarah stopped her. No, Mom, you stay. You are going to hear everything. She sat her back on the sofa. Barbara was trembling. Her mask of dignified woman had fallen completely. She was nobody anymore, just a scared accomplice watching her world collapse. Mr. Thompson sat down. He spoke calmly. The judicial process is already underway. All the falsifications are documented. The hardware store returns to David. The house returns to David. And the Nissan. He looked at Barbara. Ma'am, the keys, please. Barbara took the keys out of her bag with trembling hands. She put them on the table. Mr. Thompson took them and gave them to me. I grabbed them. They were heavy. Heavier than I remembered. I looked at Michael. He was sitting with his head in his hands, crying. His body was shaking. Suddenly he threw himself to the floor, on his knees in front of me. Dad, forgive me. Please, I knew nothing. She lied to me. She manipulated me. Please, Dad. He cried like a child. I put my hand on his head. I forgive you, son. My voice came out firm. But there are consequences. Michael raised his face. His eyes were red, swollen. What am I going to do? I have nothing. The house is in Linda's name. The car, too. Everything is in her name. His voice was total panic. Barbara was also destroyed. The neighbors were still in the windows, murmuring, pointing. The queen of the neighborhood had fallen, and everyone had seen it. Where am I going to go, Dad? Michael looked at me like when he was a child and was afraid of the dark. And I felt something. It was not satisfaction seeing him suffer. It was sadness. Sadness because it had come to this. Are you going to work, Michael? He blinked. Work, I nodded. With me at the hardware store. But not as manager, not as partner, as an employee. The silence was absolute. Michael processed my words slowly. Employee. His voice was a whisper. Yes. You are going to arrive at 7 in the morning. You are going to wear a uniform. You are going to receive orders from Mr. Henderson, who is now the manager. You are going to unload trucks. You are going to sweep. You are going to do what I did when I started. From the bottom. Michael stayed quiet. Then he nodded slowly. Okay. Whatever it takes, Dad, as long as I can stay close to you. I helped him up. I hugged him. And in that hug, I felt everything we had lost. But I also felt that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something. Not what was before, something new. Mr. Thompson put away the documents. David, tomorrow we sign everything at the court. The transfer of properties. Everything will be yours again. I nodded. Thanks, Mr. Thompson, really. We left Barbara's house. She stayed sitting defeated with Sarah by her side. Outside, the neighbors dispersed quickly when they saw us leave. Mr. Thompson took me back to the south side. During the ride, we did not talk much. He only told me, Justice takes time, David, but it always arrives. That night I slept in my little room, but it was different. I no longer slept there as a defeated man. I slept there as a man who had fought and had won. The next day we went to court. I signed papers, many papers. The hardware store returned to my name. The house returned to my name. The judge gave me a copy of every document. Congratulations, Mr. Miller. Justice restored. I left the court with those papers under my arm, and I cried, but not from sadness, from relief. A week later, I moved back to my house. The same house at 47 Maple Street. I opened the door, and everything was the same. My furniture, my photos, my life. I cleaned everything. I fixed what was broken, and I felt at home again. The hardware store was more complicated. Linda had left everything messy. Mixed invoices, inventory badly registered. But with Mr. Henderson's help, we fixed it little by little. I explained to the old customers that I had returned. Some were happy, others just nodded. Mr. Henderson, who had been a customer for 30 years and knew the business better than anyone, accepted being official manager. It would be an honor, David. I raised his salary. He deserved it. And then I called Michael. Tomorrow at 7. Do not be late. I hung up. That night I almost did not sleep, nervous about what was coming. At 6:30 in the morning, I was already at the hardware store. I opened early, turned on the lights, checked the inventory. At 7 sharp, I heard the bell. Michael entered. He was wearing jeans and an old T-shirt. He looked tired, thinner. Good morning, Dad. His voice was low. Good morning, Michael. I gave him a blue uniform. Put it on. And from now on here, you call me boss. I am your boss, not your dad. He swallowed saliva. Yes, boss. He put on the uniform in the bathroom. When he came out, he looked different. Smaller, more humble. Mr. Henderson arrived at 7:15. Good morning, David. He looked at Michael. Good morning, Michael. Michael lowered his head. Good morning, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson took out a notebook. Michael, today, a cement truck arrives, 20 bags. You are going to unload them to the warehouse. Hurry up, it arrives in an hour. Michael nodded. Yes, sir. And he went to the warehouse to prepare the space. I stayed at the desk. My desk. The one they had taken from me. Now it was mine again. And from there I could see everything. See my son work, unload heavy bags, sweat. get tired. Sometimes I saw him wipe sweat from his forehead. Other times I saw him stop, take a deep breath, and continue. It was hard, but he did not complain. Mid-morning, Mr. Henderson went into the warehouse. Michael, when you finish with the bags, sweep the floor, and then organize the screws. They are all mixed. Michael nodded without protesting. I watched from the desk window. I felt many things. Sadness seeing my son like this, but also something else. Maybe hope. Hope that this would make him better. Customers started arriving. Mr. Henderson attended to them. Some saw me and approached. David, good to see you back. Thanks, Mr. Lewis. We are still here, Mr. Peterson. A customer of 20 years asked, and Michael, I pointed toward the warehouse. There he is, working. Mr. Peterson peeked in. He saw Michael sweeping. He looked at me with surprise, but said nothing. He just nodded. At lunchtime, Michael went out to the street. He bought 2 tacos at the corner stand. He ate them standing on the sidewalk. Before, when he was manager, he went out to restaurants with Linda. Now he ate cheap street food standing up. Life takes many turns. When he came back, he kept working. Quiet. Concentrated. Without complaining. At 3 in the afternoon, Barbara passed by on the street. On foot. Without the Nissan. I saw her from the window. She turned toward the hardware store. She saw me. I looked at her without expression. She accelerated her pace, lowered her head, and kept walking. She was no longer the arrogant woman who laughed at me. She was just an older woman, defeated, walking alone through the streets. I felt something. It was not joy. It was not revenge fulfilled. It was just emptiness. Revenge never fills. It only leaves you with the void of everything you lost along the way. But justice does comfort, because you know you did the right thing, that you fought, that you did not give up. That was what I felt. Justice. Mr. Henderson interrupted my thoughts. David Michael already finished with the inventory. Anything else for today? I looked at the clock. Almost 4. No, Mr. Henderson. Let him go. Mr. Henderson went to the warehouse. Michael, you can go? Tomorrow at 7. Michael came out wiping his hands with a cloth. He looked at me. I looked at him. Good job today. That was all I said. He nodded. Thanks, boss. He left. I saw him walk down the street. His shoulders slumped, his pace slow. But something in me knew this was necessary. Necessary for him, for me, for both of us. Mr. Henderson sat in front of my desk. David, your son is learning. He is going to be a good worker. I smiled a little. We all need to learn, Henderson. Sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. He nodded. He understood. I closed the hardware store at 6, turned off the lights, took out the Nissan keys, went out, locked with the padlock, walked toward where the car was parked. My car. The one they had bought with my money. The one Barbara had taken from me, and that now was mine again. I opened the door. I sat down. The new car smell was no longer there. Now it smelled of Barbara's cheap perfume. I opened the windows, started it. The engine sounded smooth. I drove slowly through the streets of Oak Park, the same streets I had walked, defeated, the same streets where Barbara had humiliated me. But now it was different. I had returned. My business was mine. My house was mine. My dignity was mine. And my son was paying. Not with jail, with something harder, with humility. I arrived home. I parked the Nissan in the driveway. I entered, turned on the lights, poured myself a coffee. I sat in the dining room, took out my wife's photo. I spoke to her. I did it, honey. I recovered everything. Well, almost everything. I will never recover you. I smiled sadly. But I did what I could. I fought. I did not give up. And I won. I left the photo on the table, drank my coffee slowly, and for the first time in months I felt peace. It was not happiness. Happiness had gone with my wife, but it was peace. The peace of knowing I had done justice, that I had recovered my place in the world, that I was no longer invisible. I was David Miller, and nobody never again was going to take that away from me. 2 weeks later, the routine was already established. Michael arrived at 7 sharp. Never late, he put on his blue uniform, worked all day without complaining. Some customers recognized him. Some asked. I just said he is learning the business. And it was true. One morning, Mr. Thompson came to visit me. He brought donuts. We sat to drink coffee at the desk. How's everything going, David? I shrugged. Good. Different, but good. He smiled. You did the right thing. What was fair? I nodded. Thanks to you, Mr. Thompson. Without you, I would still be bagging groceries on the south side. He shook his head. No, David. You saved yourself. I only gave you the tools. But you fought. You did not give up. We stayed in silence, drinking coffee, like 2 old friends who had gone through war together. Outside, Michael was unloading boxes of paint. Mr. Boat. Henderson was giving him instructions. Careful, Michael, those cans are expensive. Michael nodded, obeyed, learned. And I thought maybe, just maybe, from all this tragedy, something good was going to come out. My son was learning humility, and that is priceless. Barbara never passed by the hardware store again. I found out through Sarah that she had moved to live with a cousin in Cleveland, far away, ashamed, without the Nissan, without her imaginary throne. Linda was awaiting trial. She would probably go to jail. Sarah kept working away from her family. But in peace, days passed. The hardware store worked. Customers returned. Good that you returned, David. We are here, Mr. Lewis, to serve you. And thus, little by little, my life rebuilt itself. It was not the life from before. It was something new, something different. But it was mine. One afternoon at closing, Michael approached me. Boss, Dad thanks. I looked at him. Why, he lowered his head. For giving me another opportunity. For not abandoning me. For teaching me what working for real is. I put my hand on his shoulder. You are welcome, son. That night I drove the Nissan back home. The streets were quiet. I thought about everything that had happened, the pain, the humiliation, the loss. But I also thought about the victory, the justice, the recovered dignity. And I felt that despite everything, it had been worth fighting. I parked the car, entered the house that was mine, turned on the lights, poured myself water, sat on the sofa, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. A true smile. Because I had survived. I had won. And I was still alive. Would you have done the same? Or would you have been harder? Tell me in the comments. Your story matters too. If this story touched your heart, like and subscribe. Every story I share could be yours. See you in the next story.